Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to talk about how to bounce back after a setback or a challenge. Now, if you think of Prince Siddhartha, who later became the enlightened, awakened master, the Buddha, he had this comfortable life. His father was determined that he must be kept free of disillusionment, so he sent away all the sick people, the old people out of the precincts of the palace and the palace grounds. They were in an outer part of the kingdom. So seeing only the freshness and the beauty and the bright side of life, this prince stayed in the lay life for 29 years. But one day, a synchronistic sign met with him as he was going with his assistant Channa to the royal pleasure gardens. Suddenly he saw a man with grey hair, with wrinkled face, and looking a little bent and walking with a little bit of difficulty. And he asked, "Channa, stop. Who is that man?" He said, "Oh, that is an old man. What is the problem? His hair is white. His skin is sagging and wrinkled. Why is that?" And Channa said, "Well, Prince, that is something that happens to everybody. Everybody ages." And the prince was deeply disturbed. "Really? This can happen to me? This can happen to my beloveds? This is common to all men?" Then he thought, what is the purpose then of all this if it ends up like that? So he said, "Stop, I want to turn back and return to the palace." So the next day they set off for the royal pleasure gardens once again. And this time he sees someone in great pain, someone who is coughing and suffering. And he said, "Hold on, Channa. Now what's wrong with that man?" And Channa says, "Oh, that's a sick man. He's not really supposed to be in here. He's supposed to be in the outer areas of the city. But why? What's wrong?" And he said, "Well, your father doesn't allow them to come into the city. And this is something common to us all. Everybody gets sick." And the prince was again deeply disillusioned. And he said, "No, let's go back to the palace. I don't want to go to the pleasure garden today." The next day, the third synchronistic sign was a group of people were mourning and walking behind a coffin. And the prince said, "Stop. What's going on, Channa?" And he said, "Oh, Prince, that man is dead." "What do you mean dead?" "Well, he is not alive anymore. He doesn't breathe, and they have to go and bury his corpse at the cemetery." The prince was so shocked. He thought, "My goodness, this is common to all of us. All that we do in this kingdom, all that we enjoy, all that is going to just come to a standstill and we are going to die. And this body adorned by all this gold and perfume is going to be just buried underground." He said, "Let's go back to the palace today." The next day, the fourth synchronistic sign was a peaceful looking ascetic in yellowish orange robes. He didn't seem to have the worries that others have. He said, "Hold on, Channa, who is this?" And Channa says, "Oh, that is a renunciate, an ascetic. He has left his lay life, all his worldly responsibilities, and now he is going in search of his spiritual realization." And the prince was very happy indeed, and he thought, "This is what's right for me. I need to go forth from this and search for what is right, the spiritual attainment that will free me from all this aging, sickness and death." And at that moment he got news from the palace that his little son had been born. Rahula. And immediately he said, oh, Rahulang Jato, Bandhanang Jato. He said an attachment was born. And they immediately went and told the palace, this is what the prince said. So they said, okay, let's name the little boy Rahula. But this day he came with a different feeling, a different look on his face. He knew what he had to do next. I guess he didn't know all the steps that would follow, but at this moment he knew what his next step is, and that was to become an ascetic. And thanks to his past life practices of perfecting the 10 perfections, he was able to leave the palace, steady future as the future king. His soulmate Yashodhara, his wife, and his newly born prince. He knew that they would be well looked after by his father, the king, and he thought, or maybe he will go and find the realization and release from all these afflictions and come back and bless them too, help them out of it too. So that's the night he left and started his spiritual practice. He met certain masters who taught them the dhyanas. He mastered it in double quick time, and the master said, now please wait, you can have half of my pupils, we will enjoy this crowd and you can teach them. He said, no, there's something more. Then he meets another teacher. There was Uddaka Ramaputta was one teacher, Alara Kalama was another teacher. He was able to take him to even more refined dhyanas, that is absorptions, but those are worldly states, that is not enlightenment or awakening. So after he attained it easily due to his past practices, he knew, no, this can't be it. When I'm out of it, I'm still feeling those same mindset, my desires are still there, my aversions are still there, this is not it, there's something more. So he begged to leave their company, and they said, no, wait, you're just an amazing being, let me share half of my pupils with you and we can teach them and live here, you're very good. He said, no, I'm sorry, I think there's something extra that I need to discover. So then he left and he meets 5 ascetics who helped him greatly in finding him water and food and assisting him to do very austere practices, difficult practices where he was cutting down his meals and he was losing the flesh in his body, and he was just a skeleton with the front skin touching the back. If he touched the stomach, it was like touching the back. He said it was so shrunken in, but then he realized that is not the path. He had already had the most luxurious life in the palace on the one hand, and he had tried the most austere, difficult, painful practices of making things very difficult for the body, and that wasn't working out either. So he decided that the middle path would be the right way to go. That is to give a certain amount of nourishment for the body, so that the body can actually be strong enough for the path and to concentrate without pain afflicting him all the time. And that's the day, on a full moon point, he went to that particular spot in Bodh Gaya under that Asathu tree, and then a lady called Sujata came with a bowl of milk rice. She had just got a baby after making a vow to the deity of the tree. She imagined there might be a deity of the tree, and she had been praying for a child, and that wish had come true. So she was coming to make the offering of milk rice to that deity when he sees Siddhartha, the ascetic, under the tree, and she was so excited. She thought, oh, today this deity has come in the flesh to accept my offering. I'm so fortunate. And she gave that milk rice, and received great merit. So having taken that good wholesome meal, he felt energized and his mind and body was ready for the task at hand, and he thought, yes, even if my skin and blood will dry up, flesh and blood should dry up, I am not getting up from this seat. So that was goal-orientedness, which was one of the 10 perfections of becoming a Buddha. He had perfected these qualities for such a long time, over many lives, that when he made up his mind that he would not get up from that seat and he will continue deep into the practice, even though there were mischievous beings, it was called Mara actually. He sent an army of beings, beautiful ladies dancing. He created visions and created so many distractions. Then he tried to send thunderbolts and elephants and fearsome noises. Now Siddhartha would not be moved. He would continue his practice, continue on towards his goal, and towards different late hours in the night, he had certain knowledges awaken in him. He had the ability to see his own past life. So he went back, and he realized there was no beginning. He found that there was no real beginning point, and it's very cyclical, this wheel of existence. That's why it's called a wheel of existence. There was no beginning. And then he was able to see beings arising and passing away, being born and dying, and in different realms, the hellish realms, the animal kingdom, ghostly realm, then the human realm, heavens, and the higher material, fine material realms, and the formless realms called the Brahmaloka. Rupa Brahmaloka, fine material spheres. Arupa Brahmaloka are the formless spheres, which are not sensual realms, unlike the heavens. The heavenly realms and the human realm are sensual. They are enjoying sense pleasures of different degrees. Of course, the heavens are far more refined and far more luxurious. But the problem was that people were dying from there also, passing away when that merit is over. Then they pass down to the human world, and sometimes it's even worse than that. So this was a flux. Beings are moving from different planes, 32 planes of existence, and there was no true rest in any of these 32 planes, and there had to be something that freed them from that entire gamut of experiences. And he realized it. He realized the state of nirvana, and all that the greatest knowledge accessible to any human being is what is accessible to a Buddha, Buddha Jnana, Tesetta Jnana, 73 knowledges awakened in him. You might want to know the 73 knowledges now. I need to check it up and share it with you one day, the 73 knowledges of a Buddha. In Sri Lanka, there are offerings made for the 73 knowledges. Those who like to do offerings and pujas, they have that. Of course, none of which the Buddha had told to do. All he has said is how to go on this path, basically follow in his footsteps. What he did, not to worship him, not to worship the knowledges, no. Awaken the insight knowledges. We can't get the 73. All we need is 16 to reach one of the 4 stages of enlightenment. So all that will be shared with you in future videos, just to keep this video simple enough that this is a fantastic time in our life from a spiritual perspective. Yes, there are financial strife. Yes, it's hard to see what's going to happen next. You see people dying, you see people sick, you have 1,000 times the signs that Prince Siddhartha saw. We all do. So this is a great time to open our eyes about the nature of existence, shake ourselves out of any delusions or illusions of what this life is all about. So let's say we get another life like this. We are still bound to, crawl on our knees, learn to walk, go to school all over again, do the degree all over again, get a job all over again, find a spouse or spice, again have more children, raise them, send them to university, right? Then face our own old age, sickness, death, multiply it by infinity. Is that something you want to do for infinity? Of course, if you're a lay person, you have these obligations. Yes, do it to the max. Send your children to good schools, give them all the support, but while you're doing this, don't lose yourself in the process. Don't lose your precious human life being distracted by only that. While you're doing that, make space to meet the masters, to watch videos that give you these knowledges and the inspiration. Go for a retreat if you can now on the 21st of this month. On the 22nd, I'm booked for a retreat with my 10-year-old. So it just so happened that she's looking forward to it. We wouldn't try a 10-day retreat because that would be too much, but the 5-day one, I'm allowing her to experience that peace. We went one day. For the very first retreat, we went to see it. I took her and she was touched and very moved by the quietness of that retreat environment, the stillness, the greenery, and the white-clad people calmly eating their midday meal and calmly walking around and going to the meditation hall and meditating. So my daughter was just taking it in as she was noticing a little streamlet there. She dipped her feet in there. She was completely removed from the city life and the school life on that day. And there was a little cat she liked. So she said, "Nammi, I really do want to come for a retreat." I said, really? I think a big reason is also the little pussycats, 3 little kittens actually. But that's a good excuse to expose our children to that kind of spiritual experience. Wish me luck, wish us both luck. I'm not going to be too gung-ho about me getting too deep into meditation for too long, because I'll still have to keep my eye open for her, but I still hope that I will get to make use of it in a big way. But it's really about inspiring her, allowing her to experience that and making sure she is supported as she goes through the motions of being in a 5-day retreat. And if you have children, if you can give that experience, take them on pilgrimages, let them feel holy sites, the power of a holy site, the energy. Because last year I also took took her on a 1-month pilgrimage to India, where we went to Bodh Gaya. We went to the site where the Buddha preached the first sermon, that is Varanasi. And then we went to Rishikesh. We stayed in an ashram. It was a Kriya Yoga ashram. So many statues of great rishis. So she experienced both sides, the Buddhist tradition, the Buddha's path, and Rishikesh, the tradition of the rishis. We went to the higher Himalayas, just the 2 of us. We didn't need any tour guide. But for the higher Himalayas, we hired a car with a driver, and on the way asked the heavens to find us the accommodation, and they didn't disappoint, I must say. We were fully looked after, fully supported. When you ask for divine help on your spiritual journey, they are very happy to give it. And I noticed that my very energetic and playful, she was 8 at the time, 8-year-old, became, it's like she was able to access a deeper, higher part of herself. It's like you unlock something in your gamut. I mean, certain parts of us are there, but it's locked. When you go to these places, when you experience these, it gets unlocked and you have access to that side of yourself. And you are then more than, when you come back, you're more than what you were. In fact, even physically, I looked different when I came back from that 1-month pilgrimage. I had even lost a lot of weight. My face had cleared up. A lot of former accumulated stress had just melted away. It's something I highly encourage you to do. Go to a retreat. If you can't do a retreat, go to a pilgrimage, or even for one day on a full moon day, if you can get out, keep your responsibilities aside for the next day, because we have to grow in every way. I think Stephen Covey mentioned that there are 4 rooms, one of which is your spirituality. Imagine you're a house with 4 rooms. One of them is your spiritual side. Make sure you visit it. You don't neglect that room. Now don't ask me what the other 3 rooms are, because I didn't read it recently. So maybe you can find it out yourself. But make sure all your faculties are given the same attention, because in the end, this body that we do so much for is going to be left behind, and it's your spirit, the mind, that's going to ascend or advance to another life. And if you're very, very lucky, and if you work hard, you can even stop it in this very life or shorten it. For this, you need to watch the video on the 4 stages of enlightenment. The 4 stages of enlightenment teach us how we can gradually reach the point of stopping the round of rebirths for good by reaching the state of Arahat. I hope to see you in that video. Until then, I wish you noble company, noble friends who encourage you on the path and who encourage you to do good always. I wish you time and focus and the energy, and I give you these happy words that when you do start, all your past practices come and boost you up. Amazing synchronicities will be happening to you. You will meet people, you will find a book, maybe even just popping out of the shelf. Or it just catches your eye and you pick it up and it's just what you needed. For example, when I started, I went to my uncle's place, and my grandfather, who had passed away many years ago, had a tiny little library of books in the shrine room. And this one book, that's a synchronicity. It came to me, my attention was drawn to it. I took that and a few more books home, and this book, The Experience of Insight by Joseph Goldstein. It was about a 30-day retreat. So the chapters were day 1, day 2, day 3, up to day 30. So each day I would read a chapter, get highly inspired and get all the knowledge I need for it. And the whole day I was practicing it as best as I could, and I think I did a very focused job of it. Although I was at home, my mother wasn't sure what I was doing. But I'm so grateful that she let me do it. I'm so grateful for that. And little by little my practice strengthened, and suddenly I found a real physical teacher who was teaching nearby. My friend's mother told me about him. I started going weekly, and then the good news that they are having a retreat. And this was less than 2 months after I had lost my boyfriend, who was a pilot. His plane crashed in Jaffna area due to a surface-to-air missile that was aimed at the plane. He was a transport pilot, so him and all those in the plane, they just went missing just like that. And I think to him it's a lot of merit that as a result of him I started on this path. And thanks to his cousin who was meditating in the Polgastu ashram with the German monk Venerable Gnanaloka, I was able to experience that. It was like Siddhartha's story. I experienced the challenge, and I also saw the ascetics at the ashram within 7 days of that challenge. Because we took the alms, the midday meal to Polgastu ashram. We had to go in a boat, and then we had to land there and take the meals, and I saw all these monks, and suddenly I realized that they are the heroes. That they had left everything to focus on this, and that was a great achievement. It's not easy, right, for us to suddenly leave everything for good like that. Maybe for some of you it's easy, and I salute you for that. And I salute all the monks for having had the courage to do that and having had the merit that supported that. So we met this German monk, Venerable Gnanaloka. I show a picture of him in my video, The 4 Stages of Enlightenment, so you can see him there. He had given the message to my boyfriend's cousin Kshanaka before the telegram reached the ashram, because the telegram is only going to the island on Friday, but Kshanaka came to Colombo on Thursday. So we were all surprised, and then we realized, oh, the monk had told that your family needs you in Colombo. So when Kshanaka came, I remember he was so fresh. He had walked so many kilometers, but he was standing near the door. He was a rishi, basically. He was into deep meditation practices. He was so still and so calm and collected. Although he was coming to his cousin's funeral, he was more like a brother to him. They grew up together. There were only very few cousins in that family, 2 or 3. So he was practically his brother. And he had all that compassion when I was asking him the questions. Why did this happen? What happened? How can it happen? All these things that I think Siddhartha felt, I was asking Kshanaka. And he, in a very still manner, he answered. He was in the sun, hot sun. Then suddenly somebody remembered that, okay, I think we better let him come into the house. And during that time, even as we were having our meal later, I was asking him questions, and then suddenly as he was eating, he was not answering. He was mindfully eating. And then I saw that. And I just watched that, and to me that was a deep teaching, just watching him in the middle of all this, what was going on in the external world, able to focus on his meal mindfully, one bite after another, and he would only reach after one bite was completed, he would reach, open his mouth. Yes, it's rice and curry, so we do eat with our fingers, which is the Asian way. I think cutlery was probably invented in the cool climes where they had to eat very hot meals. I don't know, but anyway. So this is how I came to realize that everything I have been doing up to then being extremely focused on my studies, passing my exams. I had just passed an exam with 17 subjects, a 4-year course, 4 parts, and just completed and just got my first job appointment was in my hand when all this happened. And in fact, it was a week before my final exam that I had got the job opportunity before I had sat for the final exam, and the plane crash happened a week before the final exam. So by the time I did the final exam, I was at a different mindset. Of course, I went and sat for it too. I was that focused, that calm about it. In some ways, it was more stressful when he was actually flying to the war zone, and in that sense, that stress was taken out, but this deep realization that this is the way life is, and that I need to change my goals. And so then I picked a very significant spiritual goal. The 4 stages of enlightenment as my goal. And thanks to my friend's mother who told me about the meditation class, she did a massive sacrifice on my behalf. She sent my friend Damitri to her sister's house to go to her medical school. She was studying at the medical faculty, and she agreed to come with me on the retreat so that my mother would allow me to go on the retreat. She's a lady doctor and my friend's mother, so of course my mother said yes, which gave me the opportunity to go into a retreat 2 months after the plane crash. And I had already practiced it daily according to that book, The Experience of Insight, and thanks to that master. So it was very easy to settle into the retreat life because I had already built up a very strong practice. So it was just a continuation without the distractions and with full support, because we had access to a monk to ask questions. We could practice all day in a beautiful, quiet, calm environment, so conducive for insight. So it's like if you rub 2 sticks or stones to create a fire. It's like if you rub 2 sticks or stones to create a fire, if you keep rubbing and keeping it aside, which is what we do in the lay life when we are in a household with our jobs, with our studies, with our children, we have little bits of practice and then we are back into the action. But in a retreat, you're constantly practicing non-stop. So the practice becomes greater, like when you're rubbing the stones together and this fire comes, and the fire can be built, and that's when a breakthrough moment can happen. And it does happen, especially when you come with a strong practice from home. You do experience certain states that the Buddha says, and thereafter there's nothing that can shake your confidence in the Buddha and the Dhamma and the Sangha, because you have experienced it. It's not about a belief. This is what you can gain from going to a retreat. Thank you so much for being with me on this video. I hope my story inspires you, because whatever challenge you're going through now, you can overcome it and you can turn that into a cause for a better effect in your life. It can propel you to a different level of living. And it's really worth it. So don't go into other distractions. There was another pilot who passed away in a plane crash earlier, about a month before this one, and that person's mother had lost her husband and the son. The husband was in the Navy and had passed away, and then she lost the son. But Her family thought, let's, let her go on a world tour to forget things. That is one way of dealing with it, but it's not a very long-term solution. That's a short-term solution. It's in a way akin to giving a child an ice cream to appease their immediate desire or hunger. Yes, she was in deep pain. I can definitely relate to it as someone who experienced a similar pain, but I think if you are going through something major, something severe of that sort, it's better to face it head on and do what you can, and then you can transcend it forever. That's the whole idea. We don't want an infinity of this. Yes, we've experienced it, but we can use it to teach us something very valuable, to change the trajectory of our life to a greater one, so that we also can be one of the Arahants and experience the highest liberation, the deathlessness, nirvana. See you in the next video, and please share this so that more people can benefit from this knowledge.